Well, if you're a Republican, that was a butt whooping and a half last night. Locally, in most of the races in Kansas, and certainly nationally as well, when you look at New York City, when you look at the state of New Jersey, and, of course, the state of Virginia. We'll break it all down this morning, 6:04. Great to have you here on KCMO 95.7 FM. Make sure that you set that preset right now on the radio dial. And if you ever miss the show, subscribe on the podcast. So we'll start with the local elections. It was a bloodbath for anybody who did not identify with the Democrat Party. I'm not going to sit here and say that it was a bloodbath for the Republican Party because, remember, these races are supposedly nonpartisan. But when you go up and down the list and you go through the municipalities, you go from Overland Park, you go to Prairie Village, you go to Lansing, you go to Olathe, you look at any of these local races that took place in Johnson County in particular, and those who affiliated with more liberal PACs and more liberal candidates had a very good night. Same thing with all the school board races. They cleaned up. And that's because of a couple of things. Money, yes, matters. No doubt about it. But also good leadership at the local level in these local county parties matters. Getting out the vote efforts matter. Having a coordinated plan makes a difference. And frankly, as far as I can tell, none of these things were done all that effectively on the Republican side of the aisle. And we can sit here all day and complain about PACs and who's funding them and things like that. But in the end, no one's breaking the law. Seriously, no one is. They are using these nonpartisan elections to get their people elected, and how they go about doing it with PACs and this and coordination and good data people. Well, you know what? Instead of complaining about it, it's time for local GOP members to figure out how to start winning again. Because it's been too long since they've had any real notable victories. And it's not happening. And last night should have been, and I would hope would be, major alarm bells going off for people who are not left of center or further left in Johnson County. I would like to think even people who are moderate, who just want common sense school board members. So we're going to stand up for people like Barb Hart, the kindergarten teacher who got fired in the Blue Valley School District a couple of weeks ago for helping a special needs child having a meltdown. The one guy who had Barb Hart's back, Jim McMullen, he got blown out yesterday. He got smoked. This is not about like whether you love Trump or not. It's got nothing to do with Trump. These issues are totally irrelevant to Trump. But I will say this. Democrats in Johnson County have done a very good job, and Democrats around the country, for that matter, have done a very good job making everything about Trump. I mean, my goodness, your kid drops his lunch at school and falls in a puddle at school, and somehow that's Trump's fault. I mean, they figured out a way to make that true, at least in their own minds. It's not actually true, but they've made it true in their own minds. So they had a huge night in all of these local races. And at some point, the local people in charge on the Republican side have to look themselves in the mirror and say, am I up for this? And I don't mean like up for it because you want to play politics and like, you know, you're retired and looking for something to do. And you really like MAGA. I mean, do you want to do like the really hard work, the fundraising, the non-sexy day-to-day stuff that has to be done to actually end up winning? Stacking those bricks every single day. Not saying, hey, you know, can we do some big thing on social media that might go viral? That stuff doesn't really work. Democrats here in Johnson County and some of the people in charge that handle their data, handle their get out the vote, handle their PACs, they're really not walking up and down every street corner bragging about it on social media. They're quietly working behind the scenes and doing what needs to be done, and they're winning. And Republicans are losing. and then complaining about it ad nauseum. And until that changes, the landscape's not going to change. It really isn't. And you can say, well, it's a hopeless cause, and that's fine. If that's your opinion, if there's no hope for Johnson County and city council races and school board races, that's your prerogative. Then get out of the way. Then don't be involved. But for people that want to get into the game and want to fight, as someone once famously said, well, you know what? You get in the game. Instead of trying to find excuses, try to find out ways and figure out ways to win. See what your opponents are doing that is working. That's what has to happen here. Because there was really no coordinated effort. And I'm not knocking and picking on one person. It's not about one person. It's really not. It's not about one person involved in one county party or anything like that. It is a collective effort across the board. And that's what resulted in just an absolute wipeout last night in basically every municipality. But if you're some of the PACs involved on the left side of the aisle, if you're involved in, obviously, the Democrat Party in Jackson County, you are a very happy camper this morning with how some of these races ended up going. So 913-408-7957 is our text line and our studio line on KCMO Talk Radio. And we'll get to all of your reaction this morning right here on 95.7 FM. Kurt Skoog is going to be the next Overland Park mayor. That was obviously a hotly watched race, not contested, watched race. And, I've been predicting that for weeks, thinking he was going to roll to a victory, which is why I also felt it was important to get an answer on whether or not the guy who was likely to be the next mayor for the next 40 years was interested in the Royals coming to his municipality. Prairie Village saw all of its slate of candidates who wanted to change the direction of Prairie Village and help those on the council who are currently trying to change the direction of Prairie Village. They all lost. So it was a rough night all around. And you just have to accept that reality. It's not about anyone rigging some election. It's not about any election, stations that are flipping votes. You got your butts kicked. Accepting that, looking in the mirror, wondering why, analyzing why, and getting very serious people involved. And also getting serious people to run. Now, I thought there were some good candidates. I really did. I thought there were some solid candidates across the board. But there was no coordination top down. And there was on the other side. And it led to them having some major wins. There's just no doubt about it. Some major wins. Let's get to some of what happened nationally as well. If you missed it, well, the Democrat governor, she won running away. Same thing in New Jersey. And same thing in New York City with Mamdani. So a clean sweep in these blue states or blue cities in the case of New York City. Also not a shocker. Like, these are blue states. But what was a shocker was the margin of victory. And the margin of victory in these states, double digits, when a lot of people thought maybe they're coin flips. That's the part of the story that needs to be analyzed. And what does this come down to? Yes, there's no doubt Democrats are just motivated by everything Trump. And if Trump is there in the White House, they are going to be motivated to get out and vote and send a message they believe to Donald Trump. And that is what voters in New Jersey and Virginia and to a lesser extent New York City all did last night. They were able to make it about Trump in these states, and it worked out very well for them. There's no denying that. But it's the margins that should concern the GOP. Because what it looks like is going on here in part is that, Trump lost these states, but he lost them much closer than what happened last night. So why is that? Well, I think a big part of it is right now, as the parties continue to change, what you've got going on here is you've got a Republican Party that has a large percentage of Trump-only voters. People who love Trump, who will vote for Trump, who are not your traditional GOP voter. And if he's not on the ballot, they're not showing up. Now, I completely disagree with that. You should show up. In fact, as we talked about the last couple of days, these elections locally have a much bigger impact on your day-to-day and your property taxes and your quality of service in your cities than anything that Trump or anybody in D.C. can do. But politics is a game, right? And a lot of this stuff is just like, hey, who am I attached to? And a lot of people are attached to Trump. And that is great for Trump. He's been elected twice because he's got those people. But they don't translate to midterms. They don't translate to off-year elections. And the GOP has to figure out why. And they've got to figure out what to do about it. Because if not, 2026 is going to get real ugly. And the icing on the cake for an ugly night came out of the redistricting effort, where there was bad news in Kansas right here in our backyard, and there was also bad news coming out of California and Virginia on that front. I'll explain what that was, and we'll get to you as well. 913-408-7957 on KCMO Talk Radio. So you may have missed it yesterday, but there was a double whammy of bad news for Republicans in the House of Representatives, and part of that is because of what happened here in Kansas. And then the other part of that is what happened in California and Virginia. So in Kansas, the House announced yesterday that they don't have the votes to go back to a special session this month and redistrict the congressional seats so that Sharice Davids would have a much more difficult race in the Kansas City area. They were going to try to do to Sharice Davids on the Kansas side what Missouri Republicans did to, yes, the musty moo-moo himself on the Missouri side.
You musty moo-moo-moo.
So Emmanuel Cleaver got squeezed out of his seat in redistricting, and the hope from some on the Kansas side was to basically do the same thing to Sharice Davids. The Senate was there, and Senate President Ty Masterson's going to be here at 8:30 this morning, so we'll talk to him and ask him what happened. The Senate had the votes. The House did not. Dan Hawkins, Speaker of the House, put out a statement basically saying, we can't get there. It's not going to happen. So Sharice Davids will have a safe seat. Then came the next couple of kicks in the groin. If you are House Republicans and President Trump. And that is California last night approved a new congressional map drawn by state Democrats, which would give the party the chance to gain up to 5 House seats in next year's midterm elections. And in their eyes, counter Republican redistricting efforts in other states. So we know this obviously started in Texas. Missouri's been involved. Kansas was maybe going to be involved. That's not going to happen now. So California could gain up to 5 seats in the House of Representatives. And then Virginia, which had a huge night in its state house, there's a belief now that they are going to gerrymander their state to help out Democrats in, once again, what they will call a response to Texas, just like California is. But, of course, this stuff's been going on forever. But Virginia, and I don't know if this can happen by the 2026 midterms, but Virginia is now fully blue, top to bottom. Governor on down, that crazy guy, Jay Jones, who, of course, had text messages wishing death on the children of his Republican opponents, he won. It's pretty sick stuff. I'll get to more of that coming up here. But that is a completely blue state. They flipped a bunch of House seats. So now the belief in Virginia is that they're going to be able to redistrict that state and get more Democrat seats out of that state. So that's where this is all going. And Kansas was only 1 seat, but there obviously was a hope in the White House that they could get Kansas to make Sharice Davids' seat much more competitive and make it basically a red-ish seat. And now we know it's not going to happen. Now, it still could happen early next year when they go back for their regular session. But I would venture to guess that if the votes are not there in the House, and they have to have a supermajority to do it because you know Governor Kelly's not going to sign it. If they don't have the votes now to go back to a special session for it, what makes you think they're going to have the votes when they get back into session in January to go out there and do it? I don't think they're going to be able to pull it off. And even then, it's likely going to be too late to do it for 2026 anyway. At that point, you're looking at 2028.
What do you suppose people just didn't want to go back now? We'll just do it in January.
I don't think that's what it was about.
No sentiment like that.
I don't think so, John. I mean, it would have been quick. It would have been a couple of days. They would have been in and out. I think it's more that from what I've gathered, just hearing some of this, they're worried about them losing their seats because suddenly they get branded as basically trying to gerrymander this thing against Sharice Davids. Some of the Republicans in Johnson County in particular didn't want to go down this road. Probably would have backfired on them from that standpoint. They probably would have lost their races. It would have been an easy thing to attack the Republican incumbents over. But that may happen anyway. Who knows?
Yeah, you mentioned a quick in and out of Topeka, and I can't say I did spend a week there one day. So no quick in and out of Topeka.
It would have been $400,000.
Yeah.
That's still, it was going to be a 4-day special session for $400,000. I don't know how it cost $400,000 for these goobers to go back to work for a couple of days. My gosh. That's quite a payroll they've got there. $400,000
there around the Capitol.
Jeez. 913-408-7957. The text line and the studio line on a Wednesday morning on KCMO Talk Radio. Now, the president also is not happy about any of this. And he made that very clear last night. He was not happy about the fact that obviously it did not go well last night for Republicans in some of the major nationwide races. He now, of course, knows that California is probably going to get some more House seats. He probably knows that come the midterms, at the very least, Democrats are going to win back the House. And he posted last night on his Truth Social, quote, Trump was not on the ballot and shut down were the two reasons that Republicans lost elections tonight, according to pollsters. Now, Trump not being on the ballot, that is true. As we talked about a few minutes ago, it's true from the standpoint of Trump brings out voters who just don't vote for any other Republicans or anybody else for that matter. They love Trump and they don't vote for anything else. How you get those people out to vote for other like-minded folks to help Trump, whether it's in a Johnson County race or it's in a congressional race or a Senate race, that is all TBD. But they got to figure that out, and they got to figure it out fast because Trump can't run again, right? I know. We're teasing the third term. No, he can't run again. It's over. So how do you get his people out? Couldn't do it in 18, couldn't really do it in 22 in those two midterm cycles. So how's it going to play out in 2026? Probably not all that well. And then the shutdown, maybe the shutdown juiced the base a little bit in places like New Jersey and Virginia, but I'm not buying that was really a big part of what went on here. And maybe it impacted the margin a hair, but I don't buy that for a second. 913-408-7957. How you join us on KCMO Talk Radio? Who we got here, guys? I'm not seeing anything in the chat. Just stay in my ear. All right, let's go to Mike. You're in Kansas City. What's up, Mike?
Yeah, I totally disagree with you on the shutdown. I kept wondering why Schumer was doing this. I don't like Schumer as a person. I think he's creepy and everything, but you got to give him credit. The guy's intelligent. The guy's sharp. The guy knows how to manipulate things. And when you looked at the exit polls in Virginia and even in New Jersey, one of the issues on there was the shutdown because of so many federal employees in the area. And I think this was all part of
you're telling me those federal employees in deep blue parts of Virginia were like on the fence about voting for a Republican and then suddenly decided because of the shutdown they're voting Democrat? They were all Democrats anyway.
No, not at all. What it did, it motivated them to get out and vote.
Yeah.
A lot of them would have probably sat at home or not voted or whatever. It didn't change their ideology.
Yeah.
But I think that's what it is. But I kept trying to figure all this time with the Schumer shutdown, I kept trying to figure out his end game. And I really did not buy it that he's afraid of AOC, which he may be also. But this shows it. If you follow Schumer's career for the last 50 years, this is typical of what he does. Him and Pelosi are probably two of the most conniving politicians in Machiavelli.
Well, here's the thing, Mike. They were going to win. And maybe it became 15 points instead of 8. I don't know. But they were going to win. 913-408-7957. But the most concerning thing from last night we'll tell you about next. It's a 10th Avenue freeze out in New York City where everybody is running for Florida. Good morning. It is 6:34. It is great to have you here on KCMO Talk Radio. Listen, I'm still upbeat. I'm still here rocking and rolling. I'm in the fight. Things didn't go well at all on the Kansas side of the state line where I voted yesterday. I think everyone I voted for ended up losing. Like every single one of them lost. I think I voted for 10 people last night, and they all lost. Every single one. I guess at the school yesterday, Claire was telling me that they did a presidential vote or something like that between a duck and a farmer, just, in honor of Election Day, and she picked the duck. So, duck girl there going at it. But she's like, so who did you vote for, Dad? Because I took the younger two to go vote, and I was giving her the names, and she's like, wow, are these really important people? I'm like, well, they are, but just to be clear, this is not like voting for president of the United States. Like this is, city council and school board and things like that. And trying to explain the difference in importance to a 6, soon-to-be 7-year-old is difficult. But I gave it my best effort last night. So I did what I could as a dad to share the intel at the dinner table.
I like the duck pick, as you can see on my shirt today.
Mark's got his Oregon Ducks rocking and rolling. My goodness, this guy's got gear for every team in America. Unbelievable. Paul's in Kansas City. What's up, Paul? You're on KCMO.
Hey, Pete. Yeah, one of the most shocking things last night to me was I listened to Mandabi's victory speech, and he makes no bones about what he's going to do. There was no conciliatory tone to it. He says, I'm coming after you. I'm going to rent-freeze your property, which is code for I'm going to take your property. I'm going to defund the police. Defund him. He's going to eliminate him. That's code for it. He's going to start some community health thing. And he's ready to go national with this thing. This Mandabi wave is not going to stop for the Democrats. This is going to spill out of the East Coast and go all the way across. And now, Pete, if you fly a transatlantic flight from New York to London, you now have two Muslim communists running their cities, Sadiq Khan in London and Mandabi in New York.
That's an excellent point. That is an excellent point there, Paul. And as a Jewish American especially, I mean, it's not a good situation for a lot of reasons. It's really not, especially with the rhetoric that's come out of these places.
Yeah, that's right. In Brooklyn, the Orthodox Jews in Brooklyn, I don't know. Hold on to your hat, and we'll see what happens. But, yeah, his speech last night was really – the tone there was, yeah, they're ready to spill this thing out nationwide.
Yep. Well, you know what? It'll be good temporarily, at least for places like Florida and Texas. And, eventually they run out of other people's money, especially when other people are moving their money. It's always how it goes. But I guess we got to give it a shot and see it crash and burn. But still, that doesn't change the fact that the GOP had a terrible night across the board, from local races in Kansas City to statewide races in New Jersey and Virginia, and then mayor's races in places like New York City. But the most embarrassing thing that came out of last night was in this Virginia race for Attorney General, where this guy, Jay Jones, the Democrat candidate, who had text messages uncovered about his texting people and friends a few years back about killing Republicans' kids, ends up winning the AG race by 6 points, 6.5 to be exact. Do we have really no decency left at all? Are we really so hyper-partisan now, where a guy can have a text message out there saying that, yeah, I'm basically open to the idea of killing my political opponents, or at least not killing them myself, but if they were offed, I'm not going to be upset about it, making jokes about that. Is that really the place that we want to go as a country? Now, you may recall a couple of years back, or geez, I guess this was last year. Feels like a couple of years ago with the way the news cycle's been. This guy, Mark Robinson, remember him? He was a Republican in North Carolina. Black man, GOP member who ended up running for governor. He won a primary, as you may recall, and he got smoked. He got smoked in the general election in North Carolina in the governor's race because he said racist and sexual things online. He got rejected by 15 points, even though Trump won that state by 3. So Republicans basically said, I want nothing to do with this guy, Mark Robinson, in North Carolina. They elected Trump last year, but then a lot of people voted for the Democrat in the governor's race. Now you have this guy, Jay Jones. And while there was some crossover, it wasn't even all that close. He won by 6.5 points. Where are the standards here? Maybe there are no standards. Maybe that's the point. There aren't any standards left anymore. But you would think that Republican voters basically turning their backs on a guy who says racist and sexual things online, and of course a black man saying racist and sexual things online, I think is notable as a part of the story too, saying we're not putting up with that. But on the other side, this guy does something that to me is much worse, because wishing death on anybody is much worse than being a vulgar individual. And he still wins. Not only does he win, he dominates in Virginia, which tells me how deep the TDS can run, especially in certain parts of the country. Virginia, with a lot of federal workers, would be a hub for that. And you know who he did best with? He did best with women. This guy had text messages talking about the death of his political opponent's kids. And you have moms that went out there and voted for him overwhelmingly in the state of Virginia. How sick is that? How broken is that? This is not a Republican-Democrat issue. This is really about common sense and decency. And please, you cannot sit there and tell me that, you're offended by Trump and then go vote for this guy. You cannot do that. You have no leg to stand on. I'm not sitting here telling you Trump's a choir boy. I've never made that case. Okay? Plenty of things he said, his approach, his style that is not for everybody. We've talked about that for 10 years at this point. But you don't get to try to grab the moral high ground on, oh my gosh, I'm offended by everything Trump says, and go vote for Jay Jones in the Virginia Attorney General's race. You have got to be kidding me. But that is what in Virginia, 1.7 million people did. And he won by over 200,000 votes and cleaned up by 6 points, 53 to 46.5. 913-408-7957. Jonathan, you are first up in Kansas City. Go ahead.
Yeah, Pete. I think this has been coming for a very long time. Remember back in the 90s, Bill Clinton, obviously he got in trouble with several, not just one, not just Lewinsky, but there were also other scandals with him, other, egregious moral scandals that maybe, I don't know, maybe generations and generations ago would have mattered more. But, you notice Bill Clinton, he just is like, yeah, whatever, I'm just going to keep being president. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. He leaves office with over a 60% approval rating. The Democrats gained seats in that midterm. And I think that was the start of, listen, character doesn't really matter as much anymore. It's about winning for your side and, making a good economy and all that. I think Trump capitalized on that. I think and Obama capitalized on that too. Obama and Trump and Biden, the three of them, they never really apologize for anything, even when they are wrong. I think the last president to do it was George Bush. And you ask Republicans what they think about him, they don't respect George Bush anymore. So it's like this whole, well, let's be compassionate and let's think about character and apologize and all that. People don't reward that anymore. Now it's just all about Machiavelli. The ends justify the means. I want wins for my side, and I don't really care what they're doing, which is how you get Trump, it's how you get Obama, it's how you get Biden, and it's how you get Jones, where it's like, yeah, they're questionable character, but listen, I got to deliver it for my side at the end of the day.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Jonathan, that's an outstanding call. We are in hyper-partisan times where people will find an excuse for why they still need to vote for their guy who's got the R or the D next to their name. That's an outstanding call. And anyone who's saying it started just with Trump, I mean, it didn't. There was stuff that led to Trump. But even Trump, if there were text messages like this, can Trump be crude? Sure. Are there text messages of Trump out there wishing death upon people like this guy is? No.
Even to Jonathan's point there, even more so, they will do that, but then accuse the other side of doing it.
Yeah, well, that's a great point as well.
Yeah.
It's a great point. Let's go to Rosedale. Stu, go ahead. You're on KCMO.
Hey, Bungo. First off, if I were voting in Virginia, the clear choice would have been the dark green Marine. I can't figure out how everybody didn't vote for her. But as a former New Yorker, I've been trying to come up with an analogy for what happened in New York. And I mean, everybody knows that New York is Gotham City. And the analogy that comes to me is that the people had a chance to elect Batman, and they chose the Joker.
That's good.
Batman is a fictional crime fighter. Curtis Sliwa is a real-life, genuine crime fighter all his life. And instead they chose the Joker, who's a criminal mastermind. And they also ran Cuomo, was sort of like the Penguin, like maybe not quite as evil as the Joker, but still an undesirable.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Speaking of those analogies, thank you, Stu. I saw something last night that I thought was very funny. If the New York City mayor's race was an episode of Seinfeld.
Okay.
So who would each character vote for? Jerry would vote for Cuomo. Elaine would vote for Mamdani. Kramer would vote for Sliwa. George would wear an I voted sticker and not actually vote. And the whole episode would be about George Costanza trying to get the sticker just to get a date with the woman who works at the polling place with indecipherable politics. I can see that episode. Good. That is so good, man. I can see that episode playing out in real time, too. Bring it back. Smoked. That is the word last night for Republicans around the country, including here in the Kansas City area. They got absolutely crushed. There's no two ways about it. There's no sugarcoating it. There's none of that. And part of the reason for it is something that the people on the ballot last night, at least here in the Kansas City area, really don't have a lot of control over. And it's really two things. It's the Trump derangement that just drives the base of the Democrat Party out to vote as a message to Trump, even in races that have nothing to do with him. Right? City council races in Johnson County are irrelevant from anything Trump is doing. But it drives out the base. It is a great motivator on the other side. There's no doubt about it. And then the other part of it that cannot be overlooked is affordability. Affordability is still problematic. And while Trump walked into this big mess that was largely created by his predecessor, who printed money like a drunken sailor, who treated 2021 through 2024 like it was still a COVID era, and drove up inflation to 40-year highs, where people said enough's enough, I'm going back to the other guy. And while you can't really fix that in 9 months, there still is a lot of pain out there. So when you factor in and you combine a very motivated base with people who are still feeling the economic pinch, last night is what you get. And it doesn't matter whether or not you think Trump's done enough on this front or hasn't done enough on this front. I'm not sitting here and pointing the finger at him for any of this. I'm not. I'm simply saying that voters have short-term memories. And voters care about what's going on in their wallet. They care about what's going on in their back pocket. That's what they care about. Now, you would think that when it comes to races like Olathe, Overland Park, Lenexa, Prairie Village, you would think that the candidates who were running, who were actually trying to keep your property taxes more in check, would have a good night. But the message doesn't get out. The message doesn't resonate. In part because what you have going on here locally is very poor coordination. Whereas their opponents, largely on the left side of the aisle, do a much better job when it comes to grassroots, when it comes to get out the vote, when it comes to coordinating PACs, when it comes to spending money. They do a much better job. And that's what you saw happen last night as well. I know you're thinking to yourself, well, it doesn't make sense. If people care about affordability, then why are they voting for many of the people who are more likely, not guaranteed, I hope I'm wrong about this, but more likely to be okay with property tax increases all over Johnson County, when that's the big issue that people care about? Why would they put those people into office? Well, because first off, people don't pay attention on these local races. Nick Haynes made the joke yesterday from Kansas City PBS here on KCMO that he wondered whether or not the lines would be longer at the voting booths or at the Target self-checkout yesterday. And it was a great line. And he's right. I went yesterday and I brought the younger two. Kate and I brought the younger two. The oldest was still at school. And we're walking into the polling location and this guy's walking out and he goes, "Better be careful, long line in there." And I'm like, yeah, are there more workers or more voters? And he laughs and he goes, "More workers." I said, exactly. So in these local elections, it's all about turnout. And I did not see any well-coordinated effort outside of, a place like Prairie Village to really get out that vote. And even in Prairie Village, all those candidates got, they didn't get smoked, but they lost. So now you look at this and you say, okay, how do you fix it? Well, locally, there's the local side of this, which still, you've got to look at yourselves in the mirror if you're involved with the Johnson County GOP and any of these local groups. The whole point of these groups is to win elections. That's the whole point, right? It's not a social club. If you're looking for something to do, there's plenty of social opportunities out there for you. Go join the YMCA, go play bingo somewhere. Go do something. Politics is not about being a part of a social club. If social events come along with it, fine. But your only goal is to actually get out there and figure out how to win elections. If you're just looking for something to do, well, go find that thing, whatever it is to you. But if you've been involved for a long time and you're getting your clock cleaned, it's time to find some new blood. It's time to find some serious people. It's time to find some big-time donors who are going to build you a PAC like what you have on the Democratic side of the aisle with a group like Amber Waves that I was getting text messages from, on and off for the last couple of weeks. That's a PAC that supported a lot of the Democrat candidates around Johnson County. I didn't hear from anybody on the other side. No texting, no, I didn't get a single thing. Now, maybe they can't find me. Maybe they figured they didn't want to waste money on me. But I got this PAC Amber Waves on the left side telling me who to vote for through text message with nice, pretty pictures and things like that. No idea how they got my number, but that's not the point. They're not doing anything illegal. And they're winning races. The GOP is not. And I know yesterday was going to be a tough environment. So I'm not here blaming any one person. But boy, there's really not a good story you can find locally or nationally coming out of last night if you do vote Republican. And that's just the reality. There's no sugarcoating any of this. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on a Wednesday morning on KCMO. John's in Topeka. What's up, John?
Good morning, Pete. I think we got it handed to us because the No Kings rally was energizing their base. There was no really anything that we were coming against on that, from the Republican side, and I was seeing it kind of like a Tea Party rally that they were actually getting out there and getting people out to those rallies. And the fact is if Trump doesn't move on his promises, because we've been going through a lot of pain out here, and one of those promises is refund checks from the government for the high taxes we've been paying for all these things. If he doesn't get that pushed through, he is sunk, and then everything he's been fighting for is done.
Wait, you want a refund check? Explain that to me. I don't remember that being a big part of the campaign, but please.
Remember the Doge refund checks when they said, hey, we're going to cut so much, we're going to cut you a $5,000 check, whatever, it could be up to $5,000. And then the tariffs, we're going to give you a part of the tariffs that comes in, the money from the tariffs and the Doge cut.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so if that doesn't come through, and I know guys that are Republicans are saying they're going to sit out because, Trump is sitting there catering to all these other people, and the fact is that I heard somebody say the Bush-Cheney administration is trying to come back in and push Trump out, and Trump doesn't see it. And
I see what you're saying there, John. Listen, I think your broader point is one where people are still feeling the economic pinch. Beef prices, all-time highs, cost of living still very expensive. And while it's calmed down from where it was, it's still sky high. Now, certain things Trump says, I never take all that literally. I never thought Trump was sending me a tariff check. I never thought he was sending me a Doge check. Because honestly, they've got to cut spending, but it's not like they're going to be in a surplus situation, right? They're at $38 trillion in debt. They got to pay it back. What people are looking at, though, is what is my own economic situation? And while Trump has done a very good job on some of these foreign policy issues, and they're important, there's no doubt about it, those issues will not get Republicans reelected to control the House or the Senate coming up in 26. They just won't. If people are feeling economic pain, it doesn't really matter what you do overseas, even though those things are important. I'm not discounting what he's done on that front. I'm just saying that's not what drives people to the polls. Unless you're in a wartime situation, a la 2004, George W. Bush. What was his line? Stay the course or finish the job. Or there was some catchphrase that Bush had back in 2004 that helped him with re-election because we were in the midst of a war. We're not there right now, thank goodness. No one wants to be there. But unless you're in that kind of a situation where the American people say, let's keep the leadership we've got to finish this out, which probably was also a mistake in hindsight, but neither here nor there, that's the only way foreign policy becomes like the number one issue. And with the economic pain and the cost of living and the housing prices and things like that of the last half decade, if that doesn't turn around quickly, then 2026 will get even uglier than it may have already been predicted to be. Speaking of Bill O'Reilly, he was on News Nation last night with Fredo Cuomo. You know, his brother loses the New York City mayoral race. His brother's there sitting on News Nation. Bill O'Reilly joins him. And Bill gets asked, hey, with what happened tonight, what does it mean for 2026? And here was the back and forth from Bill O'Reilly to Chris Cuomo last night, this courtesy of News Nation.
This has nothing to do with the midterms. Zero. And the reason is so many things are going to happen between now and this time next year. And it's going to be a completely different country than it is now. Now, I can't predict which way that's going to go.
Then how do you know it's going to be a completely different country?
Because there are so many things that have to be decided. There are too many undecideds. And you can start with the Supreme Court ruling on the tariffs. You can start on that. And they'll rule in Donald Trump's favor because of the 1974 law that Gerald Ford signed into. They have to. The Supreme Court can't change the law. It has to uphold what's already been in precedent. Now, they'll rein Trump in a little bit. But that will give Trump then a free field to see if in the next 8 months the tariffs can kick in to bring prices down and to help people. That's what the midterms are all about. It's about economics here. It's not about China. It's not even about Putin. It's about that.
It's rare for me to disagree with Bill, since I would call him a friend and a mentor, but I disagree with Bill. To say that last night had nothing to do with the midterms is just not an accurate statement. What it did in some ways is signal what's to come potentially in the midterms. If things don't improve specifically on the economic front, which is what O'Reilly referenced there at the very end, which I do agree with him on. But to say it's going to be a totally different country and the tariffs are going to be the thing that drives potential economic freedom or economic prosperity, that may be true. It may not be true. I don't really see any evidence either way that tariffs are having a positive impact or a negative impact right now. I don't see that as a thing that's really helping us or hurting us. Now, maybe it's just not enough time to figure out whether or not it's helping or hurting us. That's entirely possible too, and I'll give them that. But I think if you're relying exclusively on tariffs to create economic prosperity for the working class American right now, think you're missing a lot of opportunity here. It can't be just about tariffs creating economic prosperity. Now, in certain industries, you bring some of these businesses back to the U.S., you create jobs. Yes, I mean, that can obviously help over a period of time. That's not going to fix things in 8 months. The only thing that I can think of that really gets people in a better economic situation is really deregulating like crazy and cutting spending like crazy, which I don't see a lot of appetite for, at least on the spending front. I mean, we saw it a few months ago. Doge was like a thing. And when's the last time you heard about Doge? Right? Instead, it's like, well, no, maybe we got to Band-Aid some of these programs because people are so reliant on them. And if we take them off the programs, then we got a real problem on our hands. And you've seen that going on with the food stamp conversation lately, too, in the wake of the shutdown. So, at the end there, Bill comes around and he's talking about how it's going to be all about the economy. And he's right about that. That will be a big driver of it. But I don't think you can sit there and say that last night had zero impact. It may not signal everything that's to come, but it certainly plays a role. And it gives you some idea as to who's motivated right now, who's not motivated right now, who's willing to get off the couch and go vote right now, where maybe the swing voter, moderate voter is leaning right now. It does give you some idea, so it's not irrelevant, even if it's not the tell-all sign as to what's to come. What it can be and what it should be for the Republicans is at least a wake-up call of, boy, whatever we've been doing the last year, not that you got to change policy. I'm not suggesting that. I think the policy for the most part has been pretty darn good. But it's how do you get people engaged? How do you get your base motivated? Because this always happens where the side that's in power is less motivated. And they think, hey, we got this thing locked up. They get a little cocky, a little overconfident. And you've seen a lot of that, I believe, the last few months, too. In the wake of what happened 1 year ago today, when, of course, Trump won and the House stayed in Republican control, and, of course, the Senate did as well. There's a little bit of resting on their laurels. And that is what led to what happened last night, too. And it will happen again in 26 if that same approach is maintained for the next 12 months. I'm not sure we're stuck in the middle, but I see what you did there. Good morning, 805. All right, let me address this. Text line is obviously blowing up. Everyone's got their thoughts. Your calls at 913-408-7957. Overland Park mayor's race. As I told you for the last several weeks, Kurt Skoog was the overwhelming favorite to get reelected against Faris Farasati. And a lot of people have thoughts on that, a lot of opinions on that coming in this morning, and I will share mine momentarily, but here was the mayor after his reelection last night.
The community looked at my 20 years of service in Overland Park, what we've been able to get done in the last 4 years to move this community forward, and they said that that's what we want to do. We want to work to continue to build Overland Park as one of the best places to live, work, and play.
Okay. And he won very convincingly over his opponent and former councilman Faris Farasati. A lot of people texting in saying they were surprised by that. I was not. He was the incumbent. People, generally speaking, are happy living in Overland Park. And that was the message last night. Now, whether or not it means they agree with every apartment complex going up, well, I mean, there are eyesores all over the place in Johnson County. There's one big one down there at 135th and Antioch that is as hideous of a building as I've ever seen. It looks like a penitentiary or an insane asylum. But neither here nor there. People were not bothered enough to go out there and change the direction of the city. On the text line, Pete, Kurt Skoog spent over $7 per vote, and Faris Farasati spent about a dime per vote. Is that supposed to mean anything? If the LA Dodgers win the World Series with a $400 million payroll and win 100 games, that means, let's say they spent $4 million per win. Let's say, pick your bottom feeder team. The Tampa Bay Rays win 60 games with a $60 million payroll. Well, they only spent $1 million a win. Yeah, and you won 60 games, and you missed the playoffs by 15, 20 games. What's that mean? Why does that matter? What that tells me is that Faris Farasati was never a serious competitor. There was no money there, and you can complain about the money all you want, but the reality is that's politics. Republicans didn't complain when Elon Musk showed up and decided he was going to help them. So whether it's locally in Johnson County, whether it's Overland Park, whether it's any of these races, stop complaining. Go raise the damn money. Go find the donors. They're out there. Now, the donors are smart. You got to convince them you can win. There's a lot of places they can spend their money right now, right? I mean, they can spend their money on NIL funding for their favorite college football team. If they're going to spend it on the local GOP, well, you better have a damn plan in place. And the reality is there was no plan. I got more texts from left-wing PACs in Johnson County, and I don't know how they got my number, but whatever, they have my number. I got more texts from them and their candidates than I did anybody that actually voted for yesterday. What's that tell you? Like, it's not impressive to be efficient with money that you use in elections with campaign dollars when you lose. I mean, what does that mean? Well, we lost the election by like a wide margin, but boy, at least we didn't pay a lot of money per vote. Okay, and what's the point? Local GOP is not in a great place. And I'm not knocking one person. I'm not knocking one organization. I'm just saying they're not in a good place. And I don't see a real coordinated effort to improve things. I see a lot of finger pointing. I see a lot of, we've lost it. Okay, then get out of the game. I mean, I don't know. I'm just here to fight, as someone once famously said. And I'll keep doing that for what I believe would be good policies on both sides of our state line that really is not about anything happening in the national political landscape. I just think that we've got major problems right now when it comes to property taxes in Kansas and Missouri. And a lot of those decisions obviously are made by these people that got elected yesterday. City councils, mayors, school boards, Johnson County Community College folks. I mean, they're the people who decide your property taxes. And when push comes to shove, nobody shows up. Or at least not enough people show up. So where's the coordination? Where's the get out the vote? I mean, I didn't see any of it last night. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on KCMO. And, we'll see if we can get Kurt Skoog, the now reelected Overland Park mayor, back on the show soon. We will try to talk to him about the future of the Royals, maybe, now that he's won. Might be able to get an answer from him on whether or not he thinks the Royals belong in Overland Park. I mean, why not? He's got the win in his back pocket. Let's see. Rick is in Leavenworth. Give me a reason for optimism there, Rick. What do you got, big boy?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, Rick. And if I couldn't hear you, I'd tell you, okay?
Okay. Hey, so here's what I think. It's not surprising that these vile socialist communists have won in these states, right? It's disappointing. It's kind of disgusting. But these states, after all, are not Republican strongholds, right? They're Democrat strongholds. So the Democrats will wrongly take these events as some rebuke to Trump, but it's not. Trump and the Republicans need to stay the course and even double down, because what we're going to see now is communism exposed, especially in New York City and places like that. I mean, we see it here with these left wings, like you were saying, with property taxes. They want more of your money, and they use it for less things. So in a way, this might be good when we're looking 2-3 years down the line. So that's what I'm telling you. Be optimistic. There's nothing here. It's a smoke and mirrors, because they already owned these areas that they won in last night. My 2 cents.
They own them. You're right. And listen, I'm looking for that thing to be optimistic about. And if that's going to be the thing that helps you sleep easy tonight, Rick, then so be it. And there's something to what you said there. The concerning part is the margins. That's the concerning part. The margin of victory is where you sit back and you say to yourself, boy, that's a blowout. I mean, these were races, in at least the governor's races in New Jersey and Virginia, that were anticipated to be like 5 points or less. Instead, what you got was double-digit blowouts. And that's where you have to be somewhat concerned. Where the enthusiasm is, and whatever that motivation is, whether it's economic issues, whether it's just like, the anti-Trump faction, I don't know. But it's not the first time it's happened. This always typically happens. Party that's in power, there's backlash against them in those first elections after the party in power gets its way. That happens. That's just been the way since the beginning of time. But the margins is where you sit there and you say to yourself, man, that is real concerning. Ashley, let's squeeze you in here on KCMO. Go ahead.
Hey, Mundo, what to be optimistic about is that we're only 11 months into this presidency, and the left is playing off of the emotions that they perpetually play off of with their base, with their radicals. The moderates like myself that are on the right, I'm on the Missouri side, but the moderates like myself are saying, let's see this play out. And even the moderates that are on the left that I've spoken to, who are friends of mine, are saying, hey, I'm not going to go to the voting booth because I want to give this man a chance, and I want to see what's really going to happen over the next 3 years that we have for the remainder of his term. This election is not as important as the left is trying to make everyone believe it is. They are playing to the emotion of their people like they always do, and that's what's going to happen in this election. They are sitting there saying, oh, this is the most important election ever. No, it's not. Your local elections are extremely important. However, we're only 11 months in. The man has not even had a chance to do what he's actually going to do to make our country great and to stamp out the radical left that we have to get out of our country, the poison that they are trying to bring in. They are trying to bring us down from within, and that's where us moderates have to step up and say, we're not going to have it. And that's what we're going to see throughout the next 3 years.
Ashley, thank you very much. Succinct, well said, and enthusiastic. I appreciate that. She's in the mix for Caller of the Day, which we announce at 9:30 every day here on KCMO Talk Radio, which wins you absolutely nothing. But we do it because that's the kind of guys that we are around here.
Such a nice man.